to just stick with the status quo because they're afraid of paying out too much. And so if you know you've made a mistake and you can convince yourself to just get over it and spend your way out of it, you might be better off. I don't know what really happened earlier this year in January. Did Ryan Poles go to the McCaskey family? Did Kevin Warren go to the McCaskey family and say, this isn't going to work with this coach, and we're drafting a quarterback? And were they told by the McCaskies, nah, there's 3 years left, you know.
We're not going to do that.
And $13 million, we're not going to do that. If that happened, and again, I'm not saying that did. I have no idea. I'm presenting a hypothetical here. If that happened, it's bad because you see where it's gotten you. And at the end of the day, I won't even go off what their valuation is. I mean, whatever their cash flow is. At the end of the day, let's say it was $13 million that was still owed to Matt Eberflus. It was probably roughly that, about $13 million. $13 million to you and I is a whole lot of money. $13 million in the grand scheme of cash flow that is flowing in and out of one of the 32 NFL teams is nothing. It is a small price to pay. And any owner, mom and pop, or who's the guy in Washington?
Schneider.
No, the new guy. I'm blanking on the new guy's name.
Trump.
It's not Trump.
In Washington.
The owner.
Harris.
Harris. Right? Harris.
Harris.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Whether it's mom and pop or a guy that's sitting on $10 billion of his own money, whatever it is, it's a small amount of money, relatively speaking. Everything is relative. Einstein taught us that over 100 years ago. So you need to be able to realize, especially if those advising you are telling you, listen, we made a mistake. Now we have to just suck it up and buy our way out of it. You have to be willing to do that if you're going to play with the big boys and own a team. So it brings us to the McCaskies and what they will or won't spend. And everybody's going to have questions, and everyone will continue to have questions. And this isn't about player salary. Every team in the NFL spends on players these days. There's a floor, there's a ceiling, and there's a floor. Every team has to spend on players, and the Bears have certainly done that. Now, will they spend on a coach? Good question. Fair enough question. Brad Biggs had an interesting nugget this week in the Tribune, and I'll read you the quote here. If the Bears have zeroed in on Ben Johnson, and it in all likelihood is going to cost them a lot of money, and yes, they will be paying out a little.
And it'll
to
be
their
a
former
5-year
coach.
deal.
It'll be a 4 or 5 year deal, you'd think.
No,
yes.
it'll be a 5-year deal.
Well, they just gave Eberflus 5.
If he's
so.
the number one guy,
yeah,
it's going to be a 5-year deal.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Biggsy wrote this. 2 sources have said a plus here is that Warren will have the green light to spend as necessary to make the right hires. And that's a plural because a head coach is only as good as his assistants. That is good to hear. That's what you want to hear from an ownership group. You want to hear, okay, we screwed up. We'll buy our way out of the last mistake, and we'll spend the requisite amount for the new coach that will fix this mess. Because that's what the Chicago Bears are. They are a hot mess. So find the right guy and the right people, and don't be afraid to spend.
5 years, $75 million?
Whatever it's going to be. Is that what it's going to be?
I'm asking. It's $15 million
a
year.
15 a year.
Is that the area, or has he got to be higher?
I don't know. He's a first-time head coach. I mean, I get what Sean Payton gets paid because Sean Payton's got a lot of skins on the wall.
Yes, he does. I mean, he's got 1 Super Bowl. Yes,
not only that, but he's got a lot of division titles and a lot of wins. I mean, like Sean's
the playoffs.
Sean's got some skins on the wall.
It's not so much what you've done as much as it's who thinks what you can do, and will there be more than one suitor that wants you in that spot?
The leverage?
Yeah. So it's got nothing to do with what Ben Johnson has already done or how many skins he's got on the wall. It's got to do with who wants him and how bad do they want him.
You really think it could be $15 million a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Jeez. Okay.
Why wouldn't somebody else be willing to pay that kind of money? Just because the Bears might not. Why wouldn't anybody else come in there and say, no, we are willing to pay for this offensive genius?
So will the Bears really have the appetite for that? That's what
you got to ask yourself.
Question, my
That's
friend.
what you've got to ask yourself.
Because if that's the price of poker, are you willing?
What if they get Vrabel for $10 million a year and they got to get the other one for $15 million a year?
Yeah, I can't see Mike Vrabel going anywhere for probably less than $10 million a year, right?
Well, that's why I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the number I'm giving you for Vrabel.
be very interesting to follow in the coming weeks.
What if they get outbid for every other coach because they're not willing to go up into that stratosphere?
That'd be sad. That'd be sad.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Well, like, is the second offensive guy Joe Brady? So if you're not willing to pay $15 million for Ben Johnson, if Joe Brady wants 10, will they pick Joe Brady because he only wants 10?
I can't answer that.
Or can they get Joe Brady for 7.5?
Yeah, you might be able to get Joe Brady.
They'd be
more.
jumping for joy.
Yeah, right. And they'll say, we'll settle for Joe Brady.
Yeah.
That's where you get yourself in trouble, though. That's where mistakes can be made. And who knows? Joe Brady might turn out to be better someday than Ben Johnson. You never really know how these things are going to go. Maybe they'll luck into something, but I wouldn't be afraid if it were my team I were running. I wouldn't be afraid to spend.
You get
money.
18 weeks worth of content coming out of the Chicago Bears during the year. Some say 52 weeks, but 18 weeks of game day content. The preseason's a joke because they treat it like a joke. This little 3-week run they're going to have in picking this coach post football.
Football, yeah.
I don't know how long. I don't know what their timeline is, but let's call it a 3-week run. Those 21 days from when the season ends to when they finally hire a new coach, it's going to be meaty.
Yeah.
It's going to be meaty. And the information that might be out there and what you get and what the Bears' philosophies are, what they're willing to spend, what they're not willing to spend. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, and two of those coaches, what if the two highest priorities for them are offensive guys, and they are what Adam said, they're Ben Johnson and Joe Brady. Conceivably, those two teams could be playing pretty deep into Jan and into early Feb, right?
At least with Detroit, you got the bye week.
That's true.
Right, and the other one
true.
would be Kansas City. I don't think they're going down the Kansas City tree anymore.
They're not going down the Kansas City tree.
So there you go. I mean, you know what you have. Detroit, if you're the leading candidate for Ben Johnson, you get to see him in the bye week.
I mean, it's Ben Johnson, it's Aaron Glenn, and it's Joe Brady.
Yeah,
those are the three. Because Washington, even if they make the playoffs, we don't expect them to make a run to the Super Bowl.
Right, yeah. That
Expect them
And,
to lose in week one, realistically.
Yeah, right.
They're going to get their asses kicked. Yeah.
Cleveland is not going to make the playoffs, so Vrabel. Right?
Yes, right. That's correct.
So, of the candidates, because Washington, Cliff Kingsbury.
Right.
Right? So, if
You're
you
right.
look around at the options, it's just Buffalo and Detroit.
Yeah, those are the two that could drag out a little bit, and it can be a longer process. As it is right now, if this were to be the matchup, if the standings end this way, to Chris's point, the Commanders have to play the Eagles in week one. The Lions have the bye. The Eagles are the 2 seed, and Washington's the last team in right now at 8-5. The Rams will try to move to 8-6 with a win tonight. They are right there on the heels of the Commanders for that last playoff spot.